All right, everybody. Welcome back to the third podcast of, I guess, Coffee Conversations is what I'm calling it for now. Although I think I might call it Yeti Cup because this is my famous Yeti Cup that I got like 9 or 10 years ago for Christmas. No, for Father's Day. And my boys put car stickers all over it, and I've had it ever since. It's my favorite mug ever. I don't know, whatever. So anyway, I'm here today with Jackie Moncada. Um, I met Jackie 6 years ago, and I'm not breaking her anonymity because she's here today to tell her story. But I met her in our 12-step program, and how much? I have a little over 6 years sober. How long do you have?
I've been sober since March 23rd, 2020, so a little over 6 years as well.
Okay, so you've got 4 months more than me,
Yeah.
2 months more than me. All right. And so that's where I met her. I was super impressed with her. We call it a program. I was super impressed with her program, still am, and always found her to be very, very encouraging and solution oriented, which is really important. There's a lot of crap out there for addicts that I think kills them. Um, and so we became friends over time, and then I talked to her about joining the company, and so she became the account executive for Transactions Made Easy, and she's doing an absolutely incredible job. And so I asked her if she would be willing to come on today and tell her story. I call it a addiction story of recovery, of redemption, an addict's story of recovery or redemption, because her story is really powerful, is very similar to mine, in that Jackie decided to really do it right and go all the way down to the bottom as far as she could go. She climbed it out.
We're
So
going all the way.
yeah, so introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your life right now.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Dustin. I'm super excited, man. This is super cool. I'm Jackie Moncada. I've been sober since March 23rd, 2020, and it's been one hell of a ride. I was addicted to all kinds of drugs and alcohol, and like you said, I went really far down the scale. I thought there was no coming back for me, but as that's so far from the truth. We can all change, we can all recover, we can all be transformed. It's been a really cool ride.
Yep. And so when did you get into real estate?
I got into real estate in 2020 2021. Yeah, I got sober during Zoom. I mean, during COVID, and we were all on Zoom. I think that's what we met in the Zoom rooms too.
Yep.
And I don't know. Back in 2010, I went to Sabor and I was driving this little old hoopty, right? This little bitty old green, ugly car. And I went up to Sabor and I was like, I'm going to give. I was in full blown addiction, right? Didn't know what the hell I was doing. And just got really intimidated. I saw these big old fat Benz in the car, in the driveway, in the parking lot, and Mercedes Benz and BMWs, and I walked in there high as a kite probably. And nobody talked to me, nobody said hello, nobody greeted me, so I got all butthurt. And then I just kind of hung my head and I went back out, and I didn't get any information. And then so I drank more over that. And then my
Down
dad,
home.
yeah, I'll show them.
Yeah.
And so my dad, he passed away with 25 years clean and sober. He was a heroin addict, and I kept saying, why isn't it, if it can work for him, why isn't it working for me? Because I never tried that yet. And so when he got sober, he started with Armadillo Homes back in the day, and
Oh,
he said, "You need to sell homes, Jackie. You need to sell homes." And I'm like, "There's no way I'm ever going to say I can't even get out of what I'm fighting right now." So I just thought that was a lost cause, but that always stuck in my head. It always stuck in my head, and so many people have told me, "You need to be in sales. You need to be in sales," and I'm just like, I was always so scared, you know me, and in my fears, I was scared of giving up my, every 2 week paycheck to venture out and try something different. So, but that stuck in my
Yeah.
head. So to 2021, after I had a year sobriety, I went to Champions.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So a lot of y'all know who use my company for contract to close. I did the Zoom calls, the Zoom presentations for years. And then when I hired Jackie, her role was to take over those Zoom presentations. And just like we teach the agents leverage, you have to leverage through us. I knew I had to leverage through Jackie because I was doing about 30 Zoom calls a week, but I was so scared that she was going to suck at them and she wasn't going to do them right and nobody was going to do them like me. Well, she does them better than I do, and everybody likes her more than they like me. So I'm glad for that. I'm happy because everybody says Jackie's bubbly, and she is, and you'll see that as she talks today. Okay, so let's talk about the beginnings of addiction because addicts don't start drinking or doing drugs like an addict. It starts much on a much smaller scale than that. So, how did it all start for you?
Yeah, well, you know what? I was born into a family of alcoholics and addicts. Both of my parents were heroin addicts. Both sets of my grandparents were alcoholics. They both owned bars. I have pictures of me, they thought it was cute giving a little 2-year-old a bottle of beer. My grandmother used to give me, she used to call them hottie toddies.
Oh
Every
yeah,
time I would feel sick, she would, because I had emotional sickness, because my parents were never in my life. They were always out somewhere, either in prison or rehab or God knows where. But every time those broken promises would come in and they wouldn't show up for me, I'd get an asthma attack. So my grandma would give me a little shot of whiskey, and so it started at a very early age. I think you know, I was exposed to it at a young age, even before I picked up the lying. Don't tell your grandpa I took you here. Don't tell your mama we went there. This is our little money. Don't tell anybody we have it. It's our little secret. So all of that those negative patterns started at a real early age. I learned to lie when I was 3 and 4 years old. But picking up, I think I picked up at 11 years old. I saw
that's
my,
the age I did.
yeah, I saw my mom, doing what she did. And, either she was always sick, asleep, or locked in the bathroom, locked in her bedroom. My dad was an absent parent. He was always in and out of prison because of his, habits. And so, my grandfather was a raging alcoholic, and there was a lot of molestation. Um, my grandfather was molesting my mom and others, and um my grandmother never did anything about it. She turned her cheek the other way. Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? I dropped out at 6th grade. Your grandfather takes care of us. So my mom felt abandoned and not protected by her own mother. But with me, it was different. Since my grandmother couldn't protect her own daughter, she overprotected me. And instead of, teaching me discipline and structure and how to clean the house and how to cook and how to do for myself, she handicapped me by, no, 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 don't, just go lay down. I'll do it for you. Grandma's got this. I'll do it. Don't worry about it. Don't do nothing. So I didn't learn how to do anything for myself growing up. I was so undisciplined. And so when my grandmother would start to tell me, no, you can't do that. No, you're getting out of hand. I'd go run and live with my mom, who was, absent minded, not there. She was maybe there physically, but emotionally and yeah, she was checked out. And so, and then every time my mom would put her foot down and crack a whip, I'd go running back to my grandma. So there was that defiance. I hated being told no. Don't you dare tell me no. And so I was all over the place. I had no structure, no discipline, no nothing. And I picked up, at 11 years old, we were going to a party, and it was a middle school party, and the older kids had weed and beer and all kinds of stuff. And in the meantime, my mom and my stepfather were growing weed plants. And In the back of, well, they're gone now, so I guess I can't incriminate them now, but they were growing tall Christmas trees. I mean, huge. So I wanted to be the cool kid, and I would steal all these buds, and then pass them out and give them to everybody because I wanted to be loved and accepted, and I wanted to have friends, and I thought being cool was the end thing. I didn't know about being smart and doing my homework and showing up for school every day. It started in the sixth grade. It started early. Yeah.
And I love, I love how our book says, in the doctor's opinion, that we drank essentially because we liked the effect produced,
Mm-hmm.
and that is accurate because I think people have a misunderstanding that addicts choose, they just choose to become addicts and they could just choose to stop. But that's not the case because we drink as a solution to how we feel. And then over time, that becomes a physical addiction as well as a mental obsession. And that mental obsession is overwhelming. And so, when did, how we say in the program, it turned on us? At some point, it turned on us. Around what age did it turn on you?
Oh, I must have been in high school. I must have been in high school because I remember going to parties, keg parties, like out in like Redland Road. That used
Oh,
to
yeah.
be like going out of town, like, wow,
Oh,
how am I gonna get there? And they would have these keg parties. And so I remember after those parties, everybody would go get a hotel and then we'd stay in there for 3 days in a row, and like, where were my parents, and where was my mom? Why didn't anybody check on me? And so I think back then, back in high school, I lost the power of choice because that's all I wanted to do. I graduated high school, I always say, I don't know how I graduated, but I graduated cheating. Just cheating, just,
where'd you
half
graduate from?
Thomas Jefferson High School.
Got it.
Yeah. And I think like it was like a reward system to me, like I went to school all week, this is my reward, and that reward eventually became a monster. It sucked the life right out of me and I didn't want to do anything anymore. And then everybody went off to college and I became your neighborhood barfly, and then I couldn't drink like the way I wanted to and do the things that all those other things that came along with drinking. So I eventually became isolated in the house because I couldn't
So,
go.
right out of high school, 17, 18, you were hanging out in bars at that point?
Well, you know what? To be honest, I had an aunt, and this is how much this disease was on and cracking already. At 16, I had an aunt who was over the age, right? And she gave me her birth certificate, and I was ballsy enough to go down to DPS and say I was her. So at 16, I was acting like I was 21. I was her. False impersonation. And so the thinking that laws don't apply to me, thinking that I'm above of the law, thinking that I'm going to see what I can get away with. That's an addiction in itself, right? Let me see. So yeah, there's a lot to it. I was doing a whole lot of things. I think at 13 years old, I was going to spring break down in South Padre, and it's crazy how the cycle repeats itself because my mom would let me go so she could have the house to herself and she wouldn't
Hmm.
be bothered, she could party in peace. And I in turn did that with my daughter. Yeah, you want to go? Say, Mom, can I spend the night Friday night? Yeah, stay till Sunday. You know, and just looking back as we worked this program, looking back over my life, I could see those patterns, but I couldn't see it when I was in the midst of it all.
So, if there's anything you don't want to talk about, you can just tell me. I don't want to go into that area. So you did. It wasn't just alcohol for you, right?
Right, right.
What
I
what
was
all?
I was I I didn't want, never wanted to say I was a crackhead. I just smoke coke.
In
I put
moderation.
it that way. I just smoke
Yeah.
coke. Insanity. But yeah, I did a lot of cocaine. I did a lot of weed in high school. I didn't like doing weed after high school because I would be like, what am
Made
I
me
doing with
made me
my life?
super lethargic and paranoid.
Yeah, I would overanalyze everything. And so I didn't like that feeling. Back in high school, it was fun and we laughed and we ate and we cut up and we laughed till we cried, those belly laughs, but not in my 20s. I never touched it. I didn't like it. But that was about it. I've tried meth a couple of times, but my cousin tried to push it on me. And I was like, hell no, I don't need another addiction, man. I'm gonna stick with this, and that's it. I was always scared to go, further down the scale than I did.
Yeah.
Never did any needles, never put anything in my arms, thank God, yet. Um, as long as I stay spiritually fit and connected to you guys, I think I'm going to be okay
Yeah.
for today.
Um, and so how how did it for you? Because I always tell people whenever I go to a hospital or a treatment center or I'm talking with a newcomer and I'm basically just kind of doing a 12 step with them, I always tell them there's that line in the sand that we draw for ourselves where we say, well, I'm not going to cross that line. And then we cross that one and then we draw another line and go, well, but I won't cross that one. And then we cross that one and we draw another one. Eventually we get to the point where there's no more lines in the sand. We don't even worry about drawing them because we know we're going to cross them.
Yeah.
Um, what were some of those lines for you through the years before you got sober that you looked back while in your addiction and went, holy shit, I can't believe I crossed that line?
Yeah, I think I used to always say, I'm not going to sleep around for this. I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to sell my ass for this. Um, but I would call them, he's my boyfriend. Or it got to the point where like I didn't want to mess with men. I didn't want to have to do the deed or whatever, then have to, mess with that. So I started shoplifting. I started shoplifting to support
Mm,
my habit and that's how I picked up my nine felonies, because even though they were small, they were habitual and they kept getting enhanced. So I had one drug charge. They caught us out in the parking lot in the car, and we were too scared to throw it. We didn't know. We panicked, So I got charged with that. But the rest of them were shoplifting. Using. I used to always think, well, my daughters are in the house, but I'm not going to use with them. They saw me mighty drunk a lot, but they never saw me with a pipe in the mouth or I always thought I'm gonna put him to bed. I'm gonna put him to bed. I'm gonna put him in a bed first, and then I'm gonna party in the bathroom. But they knew. They would get scared. Mama, please don't go in the bathroom, please, please, because they every time I would come out, I'd be scared and paranoid and just out of my mind. And they can pick up on that. They picked up on that. I lost my daughter. She was my youngest daughter, Anissa. She was 5 years old, and her father was a police officer, and he took her away from me. Um, and you would think that a normal person would say, man, I got to get my shit together. I gotta clean my act up. My daughter needs me. She's a little girl. She can't be with her dad. She needs her mama. Who's going to put her pigtails in? Who's going to comb her hair? Who's going to rock her when she's sick? But my alcoholic mind that was already, too far gone said, you're scot free. You don't have no more responsibility anymore. You don't have to, throw any pizzas in the oven. You don't have to make any more toast. Allie's 12. She can take care of herself. You know, insane thinking. And then my crutch was my
yeah.
grandma. My grandmother was always my greatest enabler. I mean, she almost loved me to death. She handicapped the hell out of me. And I'm not blaming her. That's all she knew. That's, that's all she knew how to do. But I certainly took advantage of that. I manipulated, I stole from her so much. Those were the hurts and harms, some family heirlooms, that we could never get back out of the pawn shop.
Yep.
Um, I always lied and lied and said, I didn't take it. I didn't take it. Just tell me so I can go get it out. But my disease wouldn't have let me admit to it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people don't realize is they think, well, if you loved them enough, blah 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 blah. If you loved them enough or whatever, but people what I always say is the power of the disease is stronger than my love for my kids at that point. It
Yeah.
really is. It's not that I did not love them because I did, but man, the power of the disease was it was the only thing I understood. It was the only way I knew how to cope, to
Yeah.
wake up and cope and go through the day and not put a bullet in my head. I mean, it was the only thing I knew to do. And I think people get confused by that because they think, well, why don't you just? And they don't realize that it's the only thing we understand how to do in order to make it through each day, one day at a time.
Right. Right. It quieted the disturbance.
Yep.
I needed it just to feel okay. I thought the lie was I have more energy. I'm awake. I can make my kids breakfast. I can take them to school, and eventually it stopped, right? Eventually it got to the point where it sucked the life right out of me and I couldn't. I was telling my 14-year-old daughter, here, just take the keys, drive yourself to school, because I couldn't get out of bed anymore. Yeah.
Um, okay, so when did it get to a point where you knew, because we all get to this point where we know, okay, this is a problem. So I need
Mhm.
to do something, but you're just not sure what to do. When did it get to that? Can it usually happens a lot. It takes that's where a bottom comes in because we realize sometime at this point, but we have to keep going down before we go, okay, now I'm willing to do something about it.
Right. Well, I went to my first rehab at 30 years old. I went to my first rehab and I knew I couldn't stop. I knew then that I was an alcoholic and an addict. And my family, well, my dad, because he was in recovery, my dad kept saying, "You need to go to treatment, Jackie. You need to go to treatment." And but the thing that would happen with me is I didn't know I had an ego. I didn't, my mind would tell me you're such a piece of shit.
Yep,
You have nothing. You live with
yep,
your grandma. You don't have no car. You don't have no nothing. Look at you. You're in rehab. But, that was how do I say? I didn't know, like, when I got to rehab, I would say, I'm not like that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Oh my God, I have good jobs. I've worked with attorneys, with doctors, with radiologists, with cardiologists. I could get good jobs because I'm a good bullshitter, right? And so I could get good jobs. So my ego would separate me from them. And so when I was in rehab, I would never listen because I thought I was better than. And most of the time, every time I would go to rehab, it was saving my ass from going to jail or
yep.
prison instead of saving my ass from a life of hell, right? I never listened. Oh, every time I was in rehab, I would be sitting there with my leg going 1,000 miles. I just need to get out of here. I just need to get out of here. I just need to get my job back. I can get my kids back. Then I could get the car, and then everything's gonna be fine. And that would happen. I could get everything back real fast.
For
Really
a
good
short
job.
amount of time.
Yes, and really good jobs too. And then but see, I didn't listen in rehab. I didn't go to a meeting the minute I got out. I didn't know that I had a physical allergy that once I start, I'm going to start all at once. It's just this whole cycle in motion because I didn't listen. It's almost like I was deaf and blind, dumb. I don't want to say dumb because, us addicts and
Yeah, I
alcoholics,
understand.
we're geniuses,
Yeah, but
geniuses, but
yeah, but we're mentally and emotionally numb. I mean,
yeah,
it literally it's like hitting a wall with us until we're
yeah,
willing to listen.
Exactly. And so that cycle I went to 9 rehabs. I went in and out of jail nine
Hey,
times, and I never listened. I left 3 of them and graduated. They say they don't use that word graduated anymore because people think it's over and done. And that's just the beginning, because anybody can stay sober in a sober bubble. But the real work comes when you get out. And I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't go to meetings. I just got the job, got my kids back, and I didn't know how to navigate through life. I didn't know how to, I didn't know about resentments. I didn't get cleaned from the inside out. I didn't talk about my guilt and my shame, and never did anything about it. I just thought once I stop drinking and drugging, I'm going to be fine. And that's so far from the truth. So
yeah,
far.
yeah, that's I always tell people, because a lot of people reach out to me literally every week because I'm pretty vulnerable on my Facebook about my addiction, and they'll reach out to me either about their family or themselves, and I'll tell them removing the alcohol is not enough, because then you just have someone who's dry, but they still have this to deal with. You have to deal with this, or they go back to the alcohol or the drug or whatever it is, because we use that to quiet this. And
Right.
if you remove what we use to quiet the noise, and the noise is there and you don't do anything about the noise, we got to do something to quiet the noise.
It gets louder.
It gets super loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay. So everybody knows the word bottom. Everybody knows, oh, well, at some point you got to hit a bottom, and everybody thinks the bottom has to do with physical things, and it has nothing to do with physical stuff. The bottom, as the book describes, is a state of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, where we can't live with alcohol or without it, and we're at the jumping off place and we'll wish for the end. That's when we become willing. When did you get to that point where you were at a bottom and you knew something had to change?
Uh, well, I got married. He thought he was gonna swoop in and save me, and and we moved here, and I couldn't stay sober. I couldn't stay sober, and he threatened to divorce me a few times, and I would clean myself up, a detox in the bedroom, which I don't recommend, but and then once he'd get off my back, I'd go back right back to it. And then he got diagnosed with cancer, and they gave him 9 months to live. And so he said, Jackie, if you don't get clean and you don't get your life back on track, you're gonna be homeless again. At that time I was 42 years old. He goes, do you want to be 42 years old and have nothing again? He goes, I'm giving all of this to you. I'm leaving it for you. I want you to have a good life. I know there's good in you. He said, but if you don't stop now, you're going to pawn everything in this house that I've worked so hard for, and you're going to be sitting out on the curb again for the 10th time. You're going to go back to your grandma's? Your poor grandma's living on $900 a month, taking care of you and your kids and your aunts and your uncles and everything, you know? And for the first time I heard that, I didn't want to go all the way down to the bottom, like you said, like material. Before it was like, I don't care. Oh, well, I'll get it back. I know how. I can clean myself up. I know how to get it all back. But this time I heard that. It was almost like, the liar in me was silenced just long enough for me to hear that. And I honored his dying wish. That was his dying wish. Please go get some help. And I did. I went and I called my dad and I said, Dad, I'm ready. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be homeless again. I'm scared. I want to be able to get a job and pay for the mortgage. I want to make him proud. And so he told me where to go, get to a meeting. And so I did. But you know what, Dustin? That little monkey was on my back. I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I wanted that life insurance was coming. The life insurance. It's all your money. It's yours. You don't have to steal for it no more. You don't have to ask anybody for anything no more. You can do whatever you want with it. I was supposed to use that money to hire an attorney to get my daughter back. And because I had lost her, remember I told you her father took her away. And when I when I finally snapped, I was like, how did I let 10 years go by and I didn't see my daughter? How? And then in the meantime, I drug my oldest daughter through the wake of untreated alcoholism. She saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. But so that life insurance came in, and I had 9 months sober, just going to meetings,
Oh no, that
barely calling my sponsor, and not working any steps. And if I did, I just I half-assed it,
yeah.
so that monkey was there, that the voices in my head, it's yours, you can do it, you did it. And so one day didn't work through any of my resentments against my dad. I had so much anger at him. I had so much, why, blaming him. Why aren't you helping me? And he was like, damn, Jackie, I've taken you to 9 rehabs. You got to want to help yourself. I'm done. I can't help you. You got to do this on your own. And so one day he pissed me off, and with no connection to a higher power, I just said, to hell with this. I ain't going to hear this shit anymore. And I turned my car around and I went, and before you knew it, it was just $200 today, the ATM, just $500 more ATM. I'm just going to do 200 more. I promise I'm going to stop. I'm going to get the lawyer. Everything's going to be okay. And before you know it, it was insufficient funds. I blew through that whole life insurance. And it was here because I was here. I had a roof over my head. I didn't have nobody to tell me anything. My daughter was always at school. My other daughter was with her father. And so before you knew it, I had no husband. He passed away. I had no more money. I had no money to get an attorney, and I still didn't get my daughter back. So it was, damn, what do I do? And get back to what works. And so I got back in, and I started doing everything completely opposite of what I was doing. And all I was doing was going to a meeting at noon and going to a meeting at 7. And then in between, I would eat all my feelings and sleep all day. And so I said, that didn't work. You got to get up and you got to do something different. So I got a sponsor, and I got a drill sergeant sponsor. I got a sponsor who was mean and rough and told me like it was. And, didn't sugarcoat anything, because I used to always want a sponsor like my grandma. It's okay, mija. It's okay, honey. Don't worry about it. And those are the kind of sponsors I would go after, and every time they would tell me, just let go and let go. Okay, do you have $50? Give me $50. So this time I had a sponsor who just was laid it on, like, you're either going to do this or don't waste my time.
Yep.
You're going to do this or you're going to die. What's it going to be? And so, and for some reason, I started waking up to that, and I started doing I remember sitting right here, and I was looking out this window, and I said, God, what's the one thing that I haven't done? God, why is it working? And the voice it's the steps. It's the steps. You need to be cleaned from the inside out. And I started working, and it was COVID, and I would cry and cry and cry and working my steps and I was going like 3 or 4 meetings a day and just sitting here rocking. And then what did it for me was this one young girl. She called me, and I was like, oh, I don't want to talk to nobody. And I was pacing back and forth because I wanted to pick up. And I was like, God, please help me now. I don't want to pick up. God, please help me. And the phone rang, and it was another person in recovery. And that was God answering my prayer. But I know I hit delete. I know it. But all of a sudden she was there. Hello, hey, Jackie. So I had to talk to her, right? And that was a pure God thing. By the time we got off the phone, I wasn't thinking about drinking or using anymore. And at that time, she said, Jackie, there's a speaker tape you need to hear. I'm going to send her to you. And she sent me the speaker tape. And in that speaker tape, the girl talked about using while she was pregnant. And she talked about how the main part of the disease centers in our mind. It's not in the bottle, the pill, or the pipe. It's in your mind. And
Yep.
to start writing down all those negative things that my mind would tell me. And for me, it was, you're a 9-time convicted felon. You're a piece of shit mom. Your kids are never going to forgive you. Everybody hates you. You know, all that negative stuff. And so once I started writing that down and exposing my mind to my sponsor, she started redirecting me. Those are all lies. That's all untreated alcoholism, you know, and the alcohol quieted all that negativity, that negative mind power disease. And so I'd always go to God, right? God, please protect me from me. Please protect me from my mind. Please protect me from this disease. I don't want to die today. God, can you help me? Can you be with me? And slowly but surely it started working as I continued to work the steps and go to meetings and call my sponsor diligently. You know, little by slowly things started. And I think a major turning point was I was about 2 months sober, and I was getting my nails done because I thought those all that outside stuff was gonna fix me. And it was an old dealer who called, and I hadn't blocked and deleted all those numbers, but he called me from a girlfriend's number, and he said, "Hey, man, I've been trying to get a hold of you." And I said, "No, I'm good. I'm sober. I don't want that shit. I'm happy now." And he goes, "Well, I got $200 and I'll give it to you for free, and it's good and you're going to fucking love it. And I'll take it and drop it off to you. You don't have to pick it up." And I said, "No, man, I'm good. I'm happy. I don't want any of that shit." And I hung up the phone and I called my sponsor crying and crying. "I'm sorry. I don't recognize the number." She goes, "Stop it. Why the hell are you crying?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." She said, "Don't you see? That's your
The
higher
miracle.
power and God working in your life. You would have never been able to turn down $200 worth of free shit before." I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
Yep.
So ever since then, I was like, the program is working. So I wanted more, just like an addict, right? I wanted more of this power. I wanted more of the meetings. I wanted more of solution. I wanted more of the big book. I wanted more of my sponsor, you know, the disease of more. And so this, in that one speaker tape that young girl sent me, she talked about how this is a disease of never enough. I'm
Yep.
never satisfied. I'm always bitching and complaining. I'm never happy. I think I need a house. I was homeless. I've got a 4-bedroom home. I've got 4 bathrooms, and I think I need something bigger. You know? You know, I just bought a new car 2 years ago, and I already want another one. You know, insanity. It's the insanity to stay grateful, stay humble, stay grounded, stay right sized. You know, and all of that takes practice. It takes
Yeah.
practice because I don't want to let my ego take me out. You know, come too far, work too hard to go backwards.
So talk a little about the well, in our book it's called The Family Afterwards. Talk a little bit about the reparations that had to be made with family, because there's a lot of I get contacted by a lot of family members who are watching their, it's normally their spouse, but sometimes a parent or a brother or sister, they're watching them kill themselves, and they don't understand why that person can't just quit. We've already talked about that. But they also don't understand how the addict can destroy all of the lives around them. And then what happens in the big book, there's a part where it says that the husband and wife come out of the storm cellar, because it says the alcoholic is like a tornado tearing through the lives of others, which we do, breaking hearts, breaking promises, breaking relationships, and all that stuff. And it says we come out of the storm cellar and we go, "Look, the wind stopped blowing. Ain't it grand?" And it's
Yeah,
like we think, "Well, I quit drinking. Everything's good now." But it's
right.
not,
It's
because we
not.
have to look around and go, "Oh man, I have caused a tremendous amount of damage to a lot of people around me." And so talk a little bit about what was your process like in that the eighth and ninth step where you start making those amends. What was that like?
Uh, well, you know what? It took a lot of strength and a lot of courage from my higher power. You know, my sponsor started telling me that uh, you better start praying from the get-go because you're gonna to make all of those amends, to look people in the eyes, you're gonna need a lot of strength and a lot of courage. And I did, right? I did. I was always in the big book, 86, 87, 88. I even did 84 through 88. My third step prayer, my seventh step prayer, just enough so I could have the courage to face my family and friends that I've hurt and harmed. And not so much that they did to me, but man, I did a lot of damage, and stolen credit cards, stolen, I guess the biggest ones were to my daughters, because I robbed my oldest daughter of her childhood. She had to take care of me. And then my youngest daughter, she lived with her father, and I didn't get to see her for 10 years. You know, abandonment issues. I instilled a lot of fear in my daughter, my oldest daughter. She was always scared. She didn't know what kind of monster I was going to wake up to. If I had something to wake up to, I was okay. But if I ran out that night and didn't have nothing, my horns and fangs came out. And just, Mom, I'm hungry. And just screaming and yelling and slamming doors at the top. So she was frightened, her nervous system was fried, my poor child. And so, when I was 8 months sober, that was one of the things that I would always do, and made the mistake of going and looking for my daughter, because she lived in the same neighborhood. And he would always her father would slam the door in my face. And he would always, call me a liar, and you're once an addict, always an addict. You're never going to change. You're a liar. And so that would always throw me back out, right? I couldn't handle the pain of being rejected and not being able to see my daughter. And so this time around, my sponsor said, you're not going to go looking for her. You're not. This is not on Jackie's time. It's on God's time. When God knows that you're spiritually fit and you're able to take care of your daughter, he'll put her back in your life. And so I was 8 months sober, and it just, God put it on my heart. It's time. Go look for her. And so I knocked on the door, and she was there. For COVID, it was during COVID. So her father was at work, so he wasn't there to block me, but she was scared to open the door. And, we ended up connecting. She came home with me that weekend, and she never left. It was a beautiful thing. My oldest daughter at that time, she graduated from high school, and she got engaged. So when my youngest daughter came home, my oldest daughter left to be with her fiance, and I was growing and I was changing, and I was, not screaming anymore. I wasn't this monster that my oldest daughter knew. And so, when my two daughters would get together, they knew two different moms. I was kind and loving and practicing spiritual principles, right? Being understanding and compassionate with my youngest one. And then my oldest daughter only knew the old me. And so when they would get together, like, that's not mom. Just wait. She's going to blow up on you. And it never happened. So when my daughter came back home to live with me, my oldest daughter, we were all in the house, and my oldest daughter was still walking on eggshells, thinking it's going to happen. The bomb's going to drop. And just eventually just continuing, she kept seeing me being of service, making meetings, working with my sponsor, putting my recovery first, and then making time for them, because I would always, in the disease, you put your family on the back burner. Yeah. And then in early recovery, I had to do that as well. They were like, Mom, you're always at meetings. What about us? But they could see that I needed it, And so, and when I'd miss a meeting or two, I'd be like, and they're like, go to a meeting, Mom. It's okay. Go to a meeting. We'll wait, So they could see me healing and transforming. We started growing up together. My grandmother, before she died, I got to make amends to her. She got to see me three years sober before she died. Unfortunately, wow. My mom passed away at the early age of 50 from this disease. And then my dad, he passed away with 25 years clean and sober. So we would make meetings together, carry the message together. That was beautiful. I think one of the greatest things was, with one of my aunts that I love so dearly. I said some horrific lies that hurt her and the family, and I had to go and just and make amends to her. And she said, you know what, everybody told me that you were like your father, and I never wanted to believe that, but here to come find out it was true. You were doing all those things, and all those years I was sticking up for you, and you really pulled the wool over my eyes. So I got to make a beautiful amends with her, and then employers, I had to go back, and there were so many employers who believed in me. We're good people. I mean, we're really good people, and when we're not drinking and using, we're smart. We're really brilliant people, but just lies and lies. I would say I would kill off my dad, and she'd be like, what do you mean your dad had a heart attack? I thought you said he passed away 3 months ago. you know I
And
couldn't
he
keep
did. He
my
died
life.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up. I mean, thank God I can laugh about it now, but I just couldn't keep up. And I don't know why. That's the insanity of this disease. Like, why couldn't I just call and say I'm sick? I'm not coming in. But I had to make up this big giant lie so I could get in my mind. It would be like, okay, they're gonna give me 4 weeks off. 2 weeks I'll party, and the other 2 weeks I'll get cleaned up. But it never happened because we were beyond human help,
Yeah.
never. But I didn't know that, you know. I just didn't know it. So there was a lot of financial amends, and I did them. I did them. I sacrificed getting new stuff, getting new things, until I could save up the money to pay employers back. And, I was paying myself double time and overtime. And, who would have thought, at one time I was working for a bank, and one for you, one for me, one for you. Just insane. So I may do. And the employers that didn't take the money, I was like, yeah, I got 1,500. My sponsor,
Go
it's
give it
not
to
yours.
charity.
Go give it to charity. Take it to a women's shelter or children's shelter. So, all of those things, it helped me to help my self-confidence. It helped my self-esteem. It helped me look the world in the eyes again. It helped me hold my head up, and I think this program teaches us to be on time, right? To show up early, to stay accountable, right? And it feels really good, even like with you. And you can count on me, and I feel good to be counted on, and she's going to be there. She's going to show up. I know she's got it taken care of. And I think that's a big difference you see with a lot of people in recovery, because we've seen the deepest, darkest depths of hell. And today we get to live in the light and the goodness, and we don't want to lose it, or I don't want to lose it, and I always say that, right? We're so fortunate we get to live 2 lives in one lifetime.
Yep.
We've seen the good,
Well,
bad, and
and we have seen how much devastation we cause and how living with lack of integrity just destroys everything around us. And so we don't want that anymore. I don't want that. I don't want to risk that anymore. And so I'm willing to do what I need to do in order to keep what I have.
yeah,
Because you and I both think the same way. The one thing that I don't want more than anything in this world is to feel how I felt on the morning of 5/16/2020. I never want to feel that way again.
yeah, yeah,
And so that keeps me, like, people ask me, though, you still doing that AA thing? I sure am, and I'll be doing it tomorrow too.
yeah, yeah,
Because I don't want to go back to that. And it's just like going to the gym. It's like going to the gym to you get into shape, but then you don't quit going to the gym and eating good once you get into shape. You
yeah,
maintain that.
yeah,
If you don't maintain it, what happens?
yeah.
You go backwards.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly. If we're not growing, we're going.
Yep.
And yeah, and it's just a learning process. I mean, one of the greatest things that helped me overcome my fear was you. What'd you tell me? Shit, or get off the pot. Come on,
Yep.
man. And just something little like that would just push me over that hump to get me where I am today, because I was in so much fear. And I can still get in. And I think of your words, I hear them so freaking clearly. You
I
never
would
know how
watch
you're going to
you,
help somebody.
I would watch you speak at these treatment centers and at meetings and be like, I mean, you would have my mouth dropped like, that girl is powerful. Then you'd get on a Zoom and be like, um, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, what just happened? There's this Jackie and then there's Zoom Jackie, and they don't match. And so
Yeah.
it had to be some sort of a disconnect, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
knew
yeah.
that in you. So that's when I was like, you need to shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
You you got to step into this Jackie over here role over here too, and you
Yeah.
did. You
Yeah.
did.
And it's just little things like that. I remember when I was early sobriety too, I kept saying, I just need my daughter here. I just need my daughter here. If she's here, I'm going to be okay. And she told me, stop it. Let your daughter Allie go. You need to let her go. Let her have her life. Let her find some freedom. She shouldn't have to be taking care of you. Let her go. And I'm like, what do you mean let her go? She said, she's not a power greater than you. That little girl can't keep you sober. You
Yep.
know?
Yeah, I
Another
used
one
to.
was, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Another one was, you're going to be the same, Jackie. You're going to be the same person sober that you were drunk if you don't work the steps and have a psychic change. Your thinking has to change. You're going to be the same, right? So how can I? What happened to me, for me, inside me that I can sit here and talk about all these hurts and harms and now have no emotional connection to it, no guilt, no shame, no remorse, because I'm not that person anymore, right? We've undergone an entire transformation, an entire psychic change. I would have never been able to do Zooms. I would have never been able to get up in front of a room like you and I do and share. It's a God thing flowing in us and through us.
Yep.
It's a beautiful,
Yeah, I
beautiful
used to
thing.
do the what ifs all the time. But what if this and what if that? And Steve, who you know, my sponsor, would say, "But buddy, what if it doesn't?"
Oh, I like that.
And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
and I didn't want to think about. Well, you're right. What if it doesn't? What if it goes right? Because
yeah,
I say I used to live in the non-existent wreckage of my future all the time. I
yeah,
used to live in this non-existent wreckage. Like it's always going to go wrong. It's always going to go bad. Nothing's ever going to go good. And he would turn my thinking around and go, but what if it does?
yeah,
Just
yeah,
keep working the steps and see what your higher power is capable of doing in and through you. And man, sure
yeah.
enough,
Yeah. There's that one little saying that, but what if I fall, Mom? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? And I keep that in my head.
yep,
I miss my mom. I wish she would have got it, but she couldn't come back from all that childhood trauma she endured.
yep, yep. I had the
Thank
same
God
kind
we do. That's why, my sponsor would always tell me, don't go back to what God has already rescued you from. Don't go
yep.
back to lick up your vomit.
Yeah, ugh, yes. Was there anything you want to say before we end?
No, I mean, I think we covered it, a lot. We did. We covered it a lot. I'm just grateful, to be on this journey with you. And our whole team is amazing. And just this whole transformation, it really does work. But we got to work for it. Nothing good comes easy. Nothing good comes easy. And, I'm learning and growing every day. And, it takes a lot. We're recovering for the weak, man.
If
I just
someone
go
wants,
after it like I went
if
after the alcohol.
if someone wants to reach out to you, are they able to do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. You can call me on my cell 210-502-9578. I'm always ready and willing to help. It's
Awesome.
a primary purpose.
I love you, Jackie. I'm
I
so
love
grateful
you
to
too,
be
Dustin.
on this
Thank
journey
you.
with you, and I'm grateful that you were willing to come on here and share this because I promise you, um, I mean, you see how I am on my Facebook. I am very open and vulnerable, and man, does it have an impact. It has. So,
Absolutely.
and I am excited to see what might happen from this and who might be touched and what lives might be changed.
Awesome. Me too.
All
All
right,
right,
you have a
Dustin.
great
Thank you
day.
so much. All right. Bye-bye.